within about 2.5 years, and most of my time was in the South Pacific. Paul Hoffman is the name. Anything else?
So where did you start right when you got drafted?
Okay, when I was drafted in the service, we went then to Bainbridge, Maryland, which was a boot camp.
What was boot camp like?
Well, it was strict. Yep, you had to walk the chalk line. And basically they taught you the main things of being in the service, that's all.
So after boot camp, where did you go?
Okay, from there I went to Norman, Oklahoma, to aviation machinist mate school.
So does that mean you worked on airplanes?
No, that means you went there to learn. We didn't get a chance to work on airplanes out there, not at all.
So you were a pilot?
Nope, no, I wasn't a pilot. No, I was just an aviation machinist mate. learning to be.
Okay.
Learning to be. Aviation machinist mate. In other words, you would be repairing planes, but I didn't.
So after that, where did you go?
After there, I went to Philadelphia to arresting gear school to catch the planes as they come in on the ship.
You mean like when they catch the wire and stuff?
That's exactly what I operated, the mechanisms that caught the wires. Yeah.
So how long were you there, learning to do that?
That was probably about 6 months, I guess. Training.
Was it hard? Or?
Not really. No. It's you get the basics of the operation, what to do.
So after that,
and the equipment.
Did you go to the South Pacific after that?
Well, no, I went to. Our ship was in Norfolk, Virginia. It still wasn't finished yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved on to the ship, and they worked on it yet for another couple months yet before we left.
So you lived on the ship while they worked on it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How old were you about then? By the time you left, how old were you?
Well, that's probably 18, 19 years old in there, I guess.
So how did you get from Norfolk, Virginia to South Pacific?
Very easily. We swam. No, when the ship was commissioned, then we went from there down around the canal.
The Panama Canal?
Panama Canal, went through the Panama Canal. At that time, it was the biggest ship that went through the Panama Canal. And we wound up out in San Diego, California. And we were there for a couple months and started operations there off ashore, catching the planes and stuff and catapulting them all so that we knew what we were doing when we got out there. And then we headed for the Pacific.
So in San Diego, you learned how to.
Well, basically, that's.
It was like practice.
Oh, definitely, because the crew, the flight crew was new, and everybody was new. Almost everybody was new. Let's say it that way.
So the planes that you catapulted off the carriers and whatnot, like, did they go and fight?
No, not at California.
Well, when you were in the South Pacific?
Well, down in the South Pacific, oh, definitely.
So when you were on the ship and you were doing that, how far away was the ship from the battles and where they went to fight?
Oh my. I'd have to estimate 1,000 miles from Tokyo, probably. Let's say it that way, to the best of my knowledge, anyway. We never knew exactly where we were out there. That was secret, as far as that's concerned.
Well, were you anywhere close to Pearl Harbor at all?
Oh yes, yeah. We stopped there on the way out. I should say, yeah, we stopped there on the way out.
Before it was attacked?
No.
No, after.
No,
Of
that
course.
was after, because that was one of the first things that happened in the war.
Well, on a carrier, what was it like? What was your routine of every day?
Well, basically you had to keep your equipment when you weren't under working conditions. You had to keep your equipment in shape. You had your 3 meals a day, and you kept your quarters clean where you were. And my quarters just happened to be right where one of the arresting gear operators were. So I was right next to my equipment all the time.
Was the carrier, did it have a lot of people on it? Or?
At that time, it was one of the biggest carriers. But of course, today there's much bigger carriers. I think it was 36,000 ton. I think we were at the time. Now they're 45,000 ton bigger.
It's still pretty big.
Well, it was the biggest carrier. I mean, considering that a lot of the first ones that were out there there were a couple of big ones, but basically they were the converted carriers. They had different ships that they converted and made into carriers, which were very small compared to the one I was on.
So when you were on the carriers, did you go out and see and then come back and then go out, or were you out on sea for a real long time?
We were out for 60 days. At that time, we were one of the longest ships out at sea, time period wise, at that time.
Does it seem like a lot longer when you're out there?
Well, you were busy, so you didn't really pay too much attention to the time.
Would you say before you started, like before you got drafted, and then when you came home, did you say you changed significantly at all, or?
Oh, I don't think so. I didn't see that much actual combat. I seen some, but not like some people did.
What combat did you see?
Well, there was planes flying overhead, headed for you. They shot it down, luckily. But yeah, I didn't really see heavy combat as far as that's concerned. But I was out there.
Did you keep in contact with a lot of people while you were out there?
Not really.
Was it hard to keep contact?
Well, you could write letters. That's basically, every so often they'd send letters back. That's the only way you had to converse with anybody at all. Because out at sea, you don't have a telephone.
Well, while you were on the carrier, did you make a lot of friends? Like, was everyone close together?
Well, I guess to a certain extent, you'd have to say you respected the other person.
Do you have any photographs at all?
No, I don't. I have one somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's of the carrier. Just a minute. I'll see if I can find that.
What was the name of your carrier that you were on?
Shangri-La.
Kind of ironic.
SHANGRAGRILA.
Well, before you got drafted, what did you think about the war? How did you feel about the war?
Well, it's hard to say. Something had to be done, and we had to do it.
About the war, what do you think about the war today?
Well, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that people live like they do over there. So it is. Okay. When the war was over, we were outside, right outside Tokyo Harbor when they signed the peace treaty. Missouri was the one that was in there.
Is that another carrier?
Battleship
Yep,
Missouri was in there, and they signed the peace treaty on the battleship Missouri, and we were right outside the harbor at the time, so we didn't get to see it. But then we did get go into Tokyo later on.
What was it like in Tokyo?
Well, I don't remember too much of it. It was just another town, the part that we were in anyway.
Do you feel you're lucky to have experienced all this?
Well, I guess you have to call it luck, yeah. It was. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but it was an experience, yeah.
How was, when you came back after serving, did it feel different when you came back? Did your home life feel changed?
No, I wouldn't think so, no, I didn't. I didn't feel that way anyway.
Is it a drastic change from living in a home every day and then living on a ship every day?
Definitely, it is.
Is it hard to get used to?
Not really, no. No, you just gotta do your work. That was the main thing, keep yourself occupied.
Is there any certain story you find interesting?
I don't have anything that, out of the ordinary.
Well, it certainly sounds like an experience.
Well, it was, yeah, definitely being on that carrier. At that time, like I say, it was one of the biggest ships in the fleet at that time. I don't know if you heard the guy speaking down here on Memorial Day or not.
I wasn't in town that day.
Well, it's a shame because he is his father. His mother was originally from town. His name was Thompson. She was the Nollinger out here at Nollinger store. I don't know if you knew her dad or not.
I didn't.
You're not in town that long.
No, we're new to town. About 3 years.
Yeah. You're the minister down at UCC, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Those guys had a lot of guts.
Could you choose to go in the Navy when you were drafted, or
No.
did
No.
they drafted you into the Navy?
They drafted me into the Navy. Yeah.
Would you wanted to serve anywhere else?
No, I was happy with what I'd done. I was satisfied. You know. I was a lot better off than a foot soldier.
Really?
A lot better off. Yeah.
Definitely.
I guess you know Bud Warfel.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You talked to him?
Well, he's a church member, so I visit him from time to time, and we talk
I see.
about.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He had
what
some.
branch of the service he was
He was right in the middle of the fighting.
in where?
So I guess he was on Normandy. He was.
Oh, over Normandy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well,
He saw some terrible stuff.
I'm sure he did.
Mhm.
I'm sure he did.
What year were you drafted?
I think it was 43.
My late husband was a little older than I was, and he joined the Navy in 1944.
Did he?
And he started on a submarine in the Pacific, but ended up on an aircraft carrier, the Roosevelt,
Oh, yeah,
In
that
the-
was a bigger.
in the Atlantic. Yeah,
Bigger model than mine.
he was a
That was-
fire controlman.
I think that was a 45,000 ton class at that time.
Mhm. Yeah. He and he saw Pearl Harbor after the bombing, and
Yeah.
he never wanted to go back to Hawaii. He said it was
Yeah.
so messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Well, a terrible thing. And, well, I don't know, my opinion don't count. A lot of people say about us, we shouldn't have dropped the bomb on them over there. Well, if we win it, we might still be fighting.
In Hiroshima?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing, but...
So you were over there when they did that, weren't you then?
Well, we were outside.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we weren't, and I don't know how far, I can't say how far because we never knew where we were. We just knew we were out there.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have thought we'd have been within maybe 1,000 miles anyway. Not more than 1,000 miles. In fact, I don't think we were probably that far away. If
Right.
we'd known for sure. I'm only guessing where
Mm-hmm.
at our location. Because the only person that knew, the only people that knew were the captain and those up on the bridge, you know. And
Right.
of course the pilots probably knew. But nobody else on the ship had that information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no matter what you did, you definitely helped out a lot. It sounds like.
Well, the small part I played, yes, it
Sounds pretty
contributed.
important. It's pretty important.
It contributed, yes. But like I say, there's people that seen a lot more action than what I did. It wouldn't be horrible. They really, well,
But the planes that dropped the bomb didn't come off of your
Oh, no.
aircraft carrier, did they?
no, impossible. See that with the B-29.
Okay. They were too big.
They're all much too big.
Yeah.
We could never. Now we did at one time. We launched the B-25 off of there, which was a small bomber.
What other planes did you? What were
Well,
the main
most-
planes that you did off your carrier?
Well, we had fighters and bombers and scout planes, but they were much smaller. They were aircraft carrier size. Now the B-25, we launched it off of the ship, but we didn't land it again. He went to land somewhere and landed.
So some of those planes that got shot down, were they kamikazes maybe?
Oh yes,
They
yes,
just-
some of them were, but definitely.
Mm-hmm.
The whole launching off process on the carrier, how long does that usually take?
Well, it depends on how many planes you're going to send up.
Yeah.
But basically what you do, you get headed into the wind so that you have more air across your deck.
So the wind is coming this way to you?
You face right into the wind so that you have more air coming across the deck so that the planes can lift off a lot quickly. And we catapulted and they also just flew off.
So it's like slingshotting an airplane off.
Absolutely. If you want to call it that, that's what it amounts to.
Sounds
No,
risky.
We had hydraulic catapults. But they have steam on them now, and the steam is much faster, much better.
How fast when they were coming in is like, how do you know how fast they were coming?
Well, they were probably doing maybe 50. Well, no, about 75, 80 miles an hour. But see, you're headed into the wind so that they had better control over their airplane, and they weren't doing as fast then.
So when they launched off, you're still coming towards the
You're
wind, and when they come in,
Takeoff and landings had to be done into the wind, definitely.
how long was the strip on the carrier?
I don't remember exactly. 365 feet, I think it was. I shouldn't say that because I don't remember exactly what it was anymore.
Huh?
What else?
I think you covered it pretty good.
I hope so.
Well, I definitely think what you did sounds pretty important.
Well, it was a link in the whole process.
Yeah.
You know, we filled in. It had to be done, unfortunately.